Hello, I'm back with another video on Affinity Photo 2. This one is going to be on blurring the image background. And it's going to have to do with this Volkswagen. What we want to do is to blur this. Now sometimes you want to draw your viewers' attention to a specific part of your image. And that's why we're going to try to blur all this back here so that we can make our Volkswagen really pop. In a previous video called Introduction to Masking, I illustrated the same thing on doing this by using masking. And that one was where I had the Alfa Romeo car. So if you want to review that, it's called Introduction to Masking. Here you see a picture of a Volkswagen sitting in front of a house. What we want to do is blur the background, so the focus is going to be on the car. The first thing I want to do is to make a duplicate of the background. And let me see. So I make a duplicate of the background. And this is so that if I screw up, I won't have to open the image again. I can just delete the layer that I screwed up. I'll use the selection brush tool, which is right here. It's this brush with a little halo around it. And I'll click on that, make sure my background is selected. And what I want to do is I want to select the car and the street that it's sitting on. Now this is where I guess you want to make the decision about whether you want to blur everything behind the car or just blur the house and all that. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to blur back there. So I'll use my selection brush tool, and I think I'm going to make this a little bigger. I don't want to make it too big or I won't be able to see it. Okay, so I'll make that a little bigger. And then I want to select the car. And this doesn't have to be exact right away. I mean, we're going to clean it up later on. So we're going to select all this. Make sure that our marching ants are marching everywhere they're supposed to be marching. Okay, now if we get places where we don't want to get, then what we're going to do is we're just going to subtract them out. And so click Subtract. And then click on that and notice that it's subtracting that out. And I do want to have, well, I do want to select the curb. So I'll select the rest of this curb right here. Now let's check this out and make sure that we have everything that we want. Now what I'm going to do is, first of all, I want to make sure all this is selected. And then I'm going to take a look at the car and zoom in on it a little bit so we can get to some things that we didn't want. This brush is a little bit too big, so I'm going to use my bracket key to make it smaller, because notice we selected part of the fence. I don't want to do that. So we'll get rid of part of the fence. Oops. Subtract, not add. Get rid of part of the fence. We need to get rid of the bush right here. Come on. Okay, get rid of this. And down here we have some of the bumper that we didn't get. So I'm going to need to add that back. Add the bumper. Okay, that looks good enough. And let's see right here. We need to... That brush is a little big. Okay, now what I'm not going to do is I'm not going to select the antenna. I'm just going to select all this, because this is just an illustration. If you're going to do the antenna, you're really going to have to zoom in and take some time on it. Okay, So I've selected everything I wanted to. Whoa, no I haven't. We need to get rid of this. We don't want that fence in there. That's more than just a little antenna. Okay, so now we're going to make sure we have this bumper. It's not in there. Car isn't in there. So we want to make sure that we got all of our car. We don't want that. Okay, so I'll leave that there and we'll zoom out and let's take a look at what we have. So now we have our marching ants. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to select the refine button to see if there's anything that I really want to refine. Let's move this out of the way so we can see everything. And notice that the place that we are going to end up blurring is going to be the place that's in red. Okay, so everything looks pretty good to me because I spent a lot of time with the selection tool. Okay, so now that we have this selected, what we want to do is to click on selection, and then do new layer with mask, and then select apply. So now let's make this background right here disappear. So now we have a new layer with mask. Now the reason it looks like the original picture, of course, is because we still have our background layer showing. So in order to see what we have, all we have to do is to hide that. And then we can do a cleanup on aisle 9 like we usually do. And so we will, let me see, I'm sure there, oh yes, there is. And as you zoom in on it, you can really tell. So we need to make sure that we get rid of a lot of this stuff. So we will select the paintbrush tool to do that. And and make sure that this is set on white, not black, or else you won't be getting rid of anything. And clean this up as much as we can. You'll find that when the background is back, you won't notice it as much, but when you zoom in, of course, you notice everything. So clean this up right here. And let's take a look over here. There's some bad places there. So I'm using my paintbrush tool to get rid of a lot of this stuff. Get rid of a lot of the black stuff. And okay, so I think for the most part we've gotten rid of a lot of the black, all that messed up background. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to zoom back out so we can see the whole thing. And then what we're going to do is we're going to select the background, turn the background on, or we're not going to see anything. Okay, so we'll turn the background on. Now we can see the whole picture. Then with the background selected, and check and make sure that you have the background selected, you're going to come down here and select this thing that looks like a little hourglass, and it says Live Filters. So when we select Live Filters, we're going to go up here to Gaussian Blur. And once we're at Gaussian Blur, then we're going to adjust it until we get the blur we want. So of course this is kind of like a, depending on how blurry you want it. And probably if you do this yourself, if you see this, you're going to have to go back and clean this up because obviously the selection tool, we didn't get that. Okay, or I didn't get that. So you make it blurred the way you want, and you can do some other things too. So once you get the blur you want, then you'll close that up, and you'll see that the car really sticks out. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go down and click on Adjustments, which is this thing here. I haven't used this in a while, so I just thought I would give this another test drive. Select Adjustments, and then let's go up to Brightness and Contrast and see how much we can either make this look better or make it look worse, depending. Now remember, when you're working on this, you can always change it. It doesn't really matter. You do you, and you experiment with what you want to do. So now we're going to take this slider and let's just make it a little darker and see what happens to the background. I actually think it looks a little better. Now if you're going to make this too dark, what's going to happen is this part of the fence we didn't, well, that doesn't look too bad. So maybe I might want to do this. So we're just going to make it either lighter or darker. I think it's going to depend on how much you want this Volkswagen to pop out. So once you have it the way you want, then all you have to do is to close this window, and there you have it. It's another way to bring out a particular aspect of your image. So in this way, it really makes this Volkswagen pop out, and then the background just kind of melts into the background. Okay, so I'm still trying to reach my goal of 500 subscribers. So remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell to show me that you care.